All right, good evening and welcome to the June 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Hickory City Council. At this time, I would like to invite the Reverend Steve Caldwell from Mount Zion Baptist Church to the podium for our invocation. I would ask that if you're able to please stand for the invocation and remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Let us pray. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your word teaches us in everything to give thanks. So, dear God, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your love that you have showered down upon us. Lord, we pray tonight for our local government and our government officials. Dear God, continue to lead them, guide them, and order their steps. We pray for our police officers, our firefighters, our first responders, and all who keep us safe. Finally, Lord, we pray for the citizens of this great city of Hickory, North Carolina. Lord, continue, Lord, to lead us and guide us and help us to be better men and women of you. And at the end of the day, you get the glory in all that is said and done. This prayer we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Councilman Freeman is absent tonight. He's got a conflict, so I also wanted to, as I remind myself, to remind others to please silence any electronic devices that you may have. And with that being said, I'll say that we're going to have this opportunity for anyone that would like to address the council to be able to do so this evening. I think we have some that have signed up. If you didn't get an opportunity to sign up, you can certainly still address the council. We just ask that you approach the podium, that you state your name and your address and your reason for addressing the council this evening, and that you limit your conversation to 3 minutes or less. Jacob Beaver is the first one that signed up this evening, so I'll invite Mr. Beaver to the podium, and please, for the record, state your name and address.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Guest, council members, city staff. My name is Jacob Beaver. I'm a resident at 1524 6th Street Northwest. I'm here tonight representing a group called Hickory Paths. Now, Paths stands for Pedestrian Access, Transportation, and Health and Solutions. We're a community group made up of Hickory residents who care deeply about safety, connection, and mobility for everyone, whether you're walking, cycling, rolling, or driving. First, I want to applaud you for the incredible investment you made into the Hickory Trail and all the work already underway to expand the transportation options available for local citizens. We know these changes are laying the groundwork for an even better city of connected communities. At Paths, we believe safer streets make for a stronger Hickory. We want to support that vision by helping to connect the city's efforts with the everyday experiences and feedback of the people who live here. We are here to be a partner with you and your residents. In just a few short months, over 130 Hickory residents have completed our street safety survey. Of those who have filled out our survey, nearly 80% said they feel unsafe walking or cycling on their streets. But nearly 90% of surveyed residents said they would use the Hickory Trail more often if there were safer and easier ways to access it. Now, that's a real opportunity and one people are excited about. We also believe the Hickory Trail is an opportunity for tourism and recreation, and in addition to our city's vital economic infrastructure, especially for those without access to a car. So as we continue gathering voices, listening to neighbors, and working alongside community members, Paths can be a resource to help the city move faster, reach more people, and bring even more momentum to the great work already being done. Thanks again for your time and for all you're doing here for Hickory Streets.
Thank you, Mr. Beaver. Next will be Doug Auer.
Thank you, Mayor Guest, members of the City Council, City Manager Wood, City Attorney Swanson. Good evening. My name is Doug Auer. I reside at 1036 15th Avenue in Northwest Hickory. As my term serving on the Hickory Business Development Committee nears its end, I want to thank you for your support. It has been a pleasure working with the Business Development Office, Amy, Annabeth, Charity, and Dave. And it is always an honor to represent our city, and I've enjoyed that opportunity as the HBDC chair. Hickory was designated a core community by the North Carolina Commerce Department 3 years ago. CORE standing for Creating Outdoor Recreation Economies. The business office has guided the CORE effort in Hickory along with the HBD committee. Broadly, our CORE mission is to help grow existing Hickory businesses in the outdoor space, create an entrepreneurial environment from which representatives and residents can launch their outdoor recreational products and services, and third, attract business relocation to Hickory. We have an avenue through the Asheville-based Outdoor Business Alliance to catch the fast train to accomplishing our mission. The City of Hickory has joined the OBA, as have businesses in Hickory, Defeat International, and Innovative Inc., and we continue to recruit more members. Again, as I step away, thanking you for your continued support of Hickory Core Initiative, building out a signature and robust outdoor economy in Hickory. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else present that would like to address the council this evening? All right, there doesn't appear to be so. At this time, we'll move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the approval of our regular meeting of May 20th, 2025.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a like sign. That carries unanimously. Next item is the reaffirmation ratification on second readings, and once again, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. That also carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. I'll ask if there's any member of staff or council that would like to have any item removed from the consent agenda this evening.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. That also carries unanimously. All right, we have 2 public hearings this evening. Our first public hearing will be we'll be hearing from our city manager, Mr. Warren Wood, on the recommended 2025-26 budget for the city of Hickory.
Thank you, Mayor Guest, members of the City Council, Mr. Swanson. It's a pleasure to present the 25-26 annual budget. It's hard to believe it's already that time. And first, I want to thank Rodney Miller, Chief Financial Officer, Deputy City Manager, for his work. He heads this process up and works with all the staff. People you see in this room are involved in the budget process. It's a lengthy process, and especially Matt Dellinger, works in our budget office. Brianna Eichard works in our office. She put this PowerPoint together. Mine was a lot uglier than what she ended up improving.
We can only imagine what yours looked like.
It was not pretty. But also Carrie Dunlap, Finance Director, Mitch Fryer, HR Director, all the department heads and their staff. It's a joint effort, what you're seeing tonight. And we've talked about a lot of what you're going to hear tonight, particularly recently at the council staff retreat related to our water and sewer fund and some strategic initiatives related to that we're recommending. It's really a monumental night in terms of, if it's approved, the course that this will set us on with our water and sewer system and serving the generations in the future. And there's going to be, and as I move through this, if you just stop me if you have questions, there's going to be 2 pieces to this. The first, I am going to go through the ins and outs of the budget, recommended budget itself, but then some historical data on other city councils and decisions that they have made in our water and sewer system specifically that have really put us where we are today and in a really good position. And some of the parallels to where you're sitting tonight are pretty unique. And thanks to Sarah Green at the library, she Her staff did a lot of the historical research, and Debbie Miller in the clerk's office looking at minutes. So that's where a lot of what I'm going to go over in that second piece of this came from. So the recommended budget for the coming fiscal year is $159 million. That's almost a 10% increase over the current year's budget. That's the full recommended budget with all the various funds that you see there. However, the capital reserve and the water and sewer capital reserve, those really go up and down every year and kind of skew one way or another the overall budget increase. So when you just look at our operating funds on the screen there, it's about just over a 6% increase, $145 million. So that's, from an operating perspective, that's what the increase looks like. But again, the capital reserve numbers go up and down pretty drastically every year and skew the numbers either up or down. So what we'll cover tonight in the budget presentation are three funds. So 80% of all the financial activity in the city's annual budget occurs in three funds. You saw a dozen funds up there, but 80% of the money that is allocated and spent occurs in three specific funds: the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and your solid waste fund. Now, I'll answer questions about any of the other funds that you have, but I think the use of time tonight is going to be best spent talking about those three funds specifically. So in the general fund, the recommended budget's $78.8 million. That's a 6.6% increase over the current year's budget. And the property tax rate recommended for the coming year is recommended to go up half a cent from 45.5 to 46 cents. And the reason for that recommendation is it would produce $425,000 in additional revenue that would be restricted to the water and sewer fund. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, to help fund the infrastructure redundancy projects needed in specifically our water system to reduce the risk of failure. And we talked a lot about that at the council staff retreat, and we'll get into why. Typically, there's no prohibition on it, but typically we don't use property tax revenue in the water and sewer fund, but I'm going to go over some numbers that really dictates the reason why we need to consider that. So even before Hurricane Helene, we were working on a number of water and sewer projects to create more redundancy and resiliency in our water and sewer system. So Helene really put that work on the radar screen, but we had already been working, and I'll go over some of the things we've already done and have underway. So we're recommending accelerating the implementation of a number of those projects, which I'll outline, which necessitates utilizing a portion of the property tax to produce the revenue needed to fund them. And we'll go over all this. When I get to the water and sewer fund, I'll get into more detail on what all that looks like. The general fund on the capital side, so it's $4.6 million in general fund capital. Just the big ticket items, $1.5 million in cyber security and facility security upgrades that are needed, a number of police vehicles, fire staff vehicles, and a variety of other things. One of the big things that's not on here, or three of the big things, so we have three fire apparatus, two engines, and one ladder truck, totaling about $4 million that are in the hopper to be the replacement vehicles. It's about a 2-year window now between the time you order and delivery. I thought when it was a year to get one, but now so that's not in these numbers, but that is committed. So that's, again, 2 fire engine replacements and 1 ladder truck replacement as well. So in the water and sewer fund, so it's recommended, the budget there is $41.7 million, a 7.4% increase over the current year's budget. We're recommending a 1% increase. So there's 3 pieces to your water bill. There's the customer charge, the availability charge, and the volume charge. So the customer charge relates to the cost of administering the system, the meter reading, the billing, the engineering, all that. The availability charge relates to the lines, and the volume charge relates to production of water and treatment of wastewater. So those are the components. So it's a 1% increase in the customer charge, 1% increase in availability, and a 5% increase in the volume charge for the coming year is what's recommended. And I'll get into what the impact of that is on the average bill here in a second. The City and Water and Sewer Fund, we operate a regional system serving 120,000 customers in 12 different jurisdictions in the region. So we have a lot of partnerships with surrounding jurisdictions, both in providing water and treating wastewater. And we went over what that looked like at your retreat. So this stat really blows me away every time I say. So in square, not number of customers or meters or lines of miles of lines or anything like that, but in square miles, the city of Hickory maintains the second largest municipal water system in the state. So it's larger. Our geographic size is larger than Raleigh, Greensboro, Winston, Wilmington. We're second to Seamud, Charlotte, but we have a large footprint geographically for our water system, and that mainly relates to our relationship with Alexander County and Catawba County, particularly Southeast Catawba County, and our partnership with them in maintaining. They own the lines in their system, but we have a revenue sharing agreement where we maintain their systems. The other model is a bulk customer where we just sell bulk water or treat bulk wastewater. On the water side, we sell bulk water to Conover, Longview, Maiden, and Eichard Water Corporation. So there's a master meters that are read. We know how much water is going through. They maintain their system. They do their billing. They do everything. We're just selling water. And conversely, on the wastewater side, Longview and Burke County and Alexander County are three bulk customers on the wastewater side. So that's kind of different types of contracts and agreements and arrangements, but the agreements with Alexander and Catawba County really make our system large that we maintain. The city of Hickory owns one regional water plant, where it is. It's right off US 321 at the river there, and three wastewater treatment plants: the Henry Fork Wastewater Treatment Plant off River Road, the Northeast Wastewater Treatment Plant on Cloninger Mill Road, and the Hickory Catawba Wastewater Treatment Plant down in outside the town of Catawba. So those are the three wastewater treatment plants. And I'm not going to get into it, but we're close to going live with the biosolids facility, which is located. That's to treat the sludge and create a product that you have to do something with that stuff. So that facility, biosolids facility, will go live in the next couple of months. And that was, to date, the single largest capital project the city's ever had. And also, we own and maintain 1,000 miles of water lines and 600 miles of sewer lines in our system. So here's some rate comparisons. So these are most all the jurisdictions in the four-county region. And Hickory's our current rates are at the bottom. You can see the average. This is like the average household usage is typically thought of as 5,000 gallons per month. You can see the various rates, and the average at the bottom, we're $15, $14 below the average on the water side for the region, and $9 or plus or minus on the wastewater sewer side compared to the average, and $13 on the total bill below the average. So the increase that we're proposing, just went over, will have a $1.51 impact on that average 5,000 gallon a month usage. So you're going to be looking at $68 a month, which is still below the regional average. Again, y'all stop me when I go through this if you have anything. Go ahead.
Like Alexander County's, it looks fairly high. Is that because they purchase?
They have they have double rates. So the agreement with them and Catawba County is, so their rates are typically double ours. So we do the billing, the reading, maintaining everything. We bill their customers double plus or minus our rate, and then we keep for every $2 we bring in, we keep $1 and we pay out $1 to Alexander or Catawba County. So they have double rates. Let's see here. So some capital on the water and sewer fund side. So total about $4.7 million in capital for the coming year. Some of the big ticket items. Every year we do water line replacements and waste and sewer line replacements. So those are two big ones. And we talked about at the retreat, we're having a more data-driven process in prioritizing water line and sewer line replacements, more of a risk based process as well as condition. So that will be implemented the first of the calendar, next year's calendar year. So that will give us more data-driven information on how to prioritize and what should be prioritized with water line and sewer line replacements. We've got some miscellaneous rehabilitation projects, and then you can see a few other things there. All right, so again, I keep going back to the council staff retreat. We talked a lot about building redundancy and resiliency in our water and wastewater sewer systems. So, and we brought Henderson, the city manager of Hendersonville, in for him to talk about their experience with Helene and some of the things they had done that really helped them to literally weather the storm with Helene. And that's kind of a roadmap, for lack of a better word, for us, although we have already been working on that, but just to drive the point home that to build redundancy into your system is extremely important. So we're going to have some big numbers I'm going to throw at you here in a minute, but here's what's driving the need for these capital improvements related to building more redundancy in our systems and as a result, more resiliency. So there's a lot of new technology out there. We talked about the advanced metering infrastructure. There's the smart meters that we're going to be implementing. Everybody's household is going to have a smart meter where you can, if you could go online, it's real time. You can see what your usage is. It'll tell you if you got a leak, or it'll tell you if you're using a lot of water and nobody's at home, which means you probably have a leak or a toilet's running or something. That's as an example. It'll also, this technology, there are also sensors that will detect, that will put in, chlorine levels, pH levels, velocity in a line, pressure in a line, and those sorts of things. And that will help us in identifying major breaks. Because right now we have to go sometimes you have to go out and, if a water tank starts draining out, here's an example. So there was a water line broke that the county owns down outside of Maiden, and the Mountain View water tank, I know you started getting phone calls, the Mountain View water tank started losing pressure because all the water was draining out, and we had to go hunt and try to find where the leak was. Well, this system, and we found it, fixed it, but this system will tell you where the velocity, you got a ton of velocity going through a certain point, and that will tell you that there's something that's odd going on there, and this is where you need to look. So those sensors will, with that type of technology, will allow us to better manage our overall system. And it would also, we had the brown water outbreak last year, and it was we think we knew what happened. I mean, there were a few odd things that kind of came together at the same time, but the AMI technology would help you better identify what it was that caused that and where in the system it caused it. If it's measuring pressure and velocity, that will tell you, a lot about where and what may have happened. Eliminating single points of failure by creating redundancy. We have a number of single points of failure in particularly our water system. You want to eliminate single points of failure. You can't ever plan for everything, but we know the things we should be planning for. In going through this, there's nothing that's broken with our system. We just need to make some investments to create the resiliency that we're looking for.
And we know the pipes that's been in the ground the longest, the ones that need the repair probably first. And all that's been documented throughout the years. It's just being documented better now, and we have better access.
Yeah, and there's a priority list and a scoring system related to this new system we're putting in that will score out based on, dozens of different factors, what you should be prioritizing. Like where can you least afford a break, and you have an old line there, and, obviously that would be one that would probably rise to the top, like a big line. We have some lines that are, maybe 100 years old that, we don't have any issues with, and you have some that may be 30 years old that we do. So it's just it's a mixed bag.
Well, and the materials they use have changed over the years as well.
Correct.
Because the land beneath us is moving all the time.
Yeah.
And we keep referring to the retreat, but just having the people from Hendersonville there, just letting us know that by being proactive, they averted a huge disaster with Helene. And then what happened in Asheville. So, you know, you can really compare that. We're just really trying to protect ourselves.
That's a really good point, because they had an AMI system, and they knew where, I mean, they had to turn parts of their system off just to keep the core, you know, up and running. And the AMI system told them where they needed to turn it off because they had major water line breaks and their system was draining out. So, I mean, that's just an example of how they used it.
Won't they, I think, I remember at the retreat, you were saying when this AMI system is put into place, it will also let us catalog the pipe type and age.
Yeah, well, that'll be part of the scoring for replacement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the scoring for the replacement. There's formulas for both the water system and the sewer system, and different criteria that will be used to score, to prioritize line replacement. So single points of failure, those are a bad thing. So Helene was one of the things that moved up our implementation timeline. I mean, it really opened our eyes to, you know, what could happen. You know, Morganton, as an example, they didn't have any water. Their whole system was down for some time, and we were in a position, I forget how many millions of gallons we ended up, 18 million gallons of water didn't just go to Morganton, but, you know, there were trucks lined up, and we had to open 3 different stations to, you know, the tanker trucks to haul the water out. We were glad to be able to do that. I mean, we were the most furthest west still functioning city pretty much in the state, so they would have done the same for us, but Helene really opened our eyes to, and we were impacted by Helene. I'll talk about that in a second, but that has moved up the timeline somewhat. So the interbasin transfer. So we know the City of Charlotte is looking for another 30 million gallons of interbasin transfer out of the Catawba that they would discharge into the Yadkin Basin. That has an impact on our ability in the future to get approved for withdrawals out of, every time, if we go from 32 million to 42 million in gallons a day in terms of a withdrawal permit, that is a permitted number. You don't just draw more water out of the lake or river. You have to get permitted by the state to do that. And there's a formula that they use, so the more interbasin transfers, meaning water coming out of the Catawba and not going back in when it's discharged, that hurts everybody else's ability to increase the capacity withdrawal out of their water source, and in this case, the Catawba River. So that has also moved up the timeline on some of what we're going to talk about here. So also just increasing predictability and reliability makes us more competitive, particularly with economic development projects. One of the things that these companies look like, particularly if they're water users or wastewater dischargers, how good is and how safe and resilient and secure is particularly your water system. So that helps us be more competitive there. So with all this, time is both our friend and our foe. We know, and I'll get into our water treatment capacity, 32 million gallons a day is the max. We'll be there in 2050. So we have time, but we don't have time, for some of these other things. And so we'll talk about some of the target timelines on the specific projects here in a minute. So here are the things that we're currently doing. Like I said, we've been working on the building resiliency in our system. The Microsoft line expansion project, so that's extending both water and wastewater lines down to Microsoft. Well, that's great because it's an economic development project, but it also creates a loop in our water system. You don't want just one line to one place. You want to loop your system, because if there's a break, then you have another way to get water there. So this will provide a much-needed loop on the south side of Hickory down towards Maiden. So that, in fact, that project went out for bid today on the water side. So we talked about AMI, automated meter infrastructure. That's a $13 million project. We've got the bids in on that. We're doing bid evaluation, and we'll be negotiating with the desired vendor in R to get, that'll be they're saying a 2-year implementation. I'm saying a 3-year implementation, because every time I say something, I wished I would have put another year on it. So, but once the green light is given there, that'll be changing out all the meters in our whole system. And one of the things we're going to see from that as these meters age, they start to read slower. So the new meters are going to be more accurate, and people are going to, their bill may be impacted if, and maybe not. In some cases, I know they will if it's an older meter, because it'll be more accurate. Raw water intake improvements, we're doing some things to improve the electrical system, as well as being able to have a better Plan B with our raw water intake, our current intake. That's that project, and all these are funded, and each one of these are funded. So that's a $4 million project. It's under design. During Helene, we didn't talk about this a lot because our raw water intake was still functioning, but the current in the river, it wasn't a lake during our Helene, it was a river, was so strong that it damaged one of our water intake pipes. Now, it didn't impact our ability to bring water in and get treated, but it did damage one of our raw water intake pipes. So that's an example. If you look, like, go back to Morgan, and they lost their whole raw water intake because they're on the river and we're above flood level with the lake. I mean, 935 is the elevation. It's supposed to be the max elevation of Lake Hickory, and above sea level. And I know the water came all the way up to the fence at the raw water intake. It was above 935, but regardless, we did have, that was one of the things that we did receive damage on. That'll be a FEMA project. That's under contract to be repaired. And a couple of years ago, we bought the old Longview water treatment plant right above, it's above the new Aviation Museum, and that's going to give us 1.3 million gallons of additional storage capacity, and the work to make that happen is under design. So that's $33 million worth of projects we had already been working on, and those are funded and at different levels of progress there. So here are the ones that aren't funded. So we need, and you heard Hendersonville, they actually have 3 raw water intakes. We need a second one, and we just, a Plan B, in case Plan A is, out of commission, is vital. So that's estimated, but that would be a 5-year goal, $25 million project, and we would go through, if approved, we'll go through the process of identifying where that might be. You would think potentially, obviously I would think on Lake Hickory, but the ideal place would be some engineering work and evaluation on where that would be located if that's approved to go forward with. Regional water system connectivity, I'm back to Morganton once again. They weren't connected to anybody else. They couldn't, their water treatment system was out of commission, couldn't make water, couldn't draw water in, and weren't connected to anybody else. We're not either. Lenore's not. So we're having conversations with other jurisdictions in the region about water system connectivity, and we've identified one in particular that we've been talking to about a project to interconnect with our water system. So at least everybody's got somewhat of a Plan B in terms of being able to get water if something drastic happened to your water treatment facility. In 2017, our water plant was hit by a tornado. Now, it didn't sustain the level of damage where we couldn't treat water, but it did get hit by a tornado. I mean, you never know. And then the 15-year goal, a new 5 million gallon a day water treatment plant, expandable to 10 million gallons a day. That's tentative. We will look at the numbers if it makes sense to do 7 million and 12 million. But that gives you an idea. But doing the work on the front end to make the expansion easier down the road. I mean, if you did 5 million, but you did the footprint and the things that you need to do to really kind of plug and play to make it 10 million, that makes it more expensive in that year, but it makes it less expensive if you were to do it down the road, because it's always going to be more expensive. So that's $270 million worth of projects. Now that's not nothing. That's not a number that we need next year. That's why we've got, time is our friend and foe. Time is our friend because we'll have time to raise revenue and set money aside, and it's our foe in that you never know what's going to happen between now and then. But that's on the water side, and we'll talk about your revenue options and financing options on some of these. But that's again, I know you've heard all this before at the retreat. On the sewer system side, we have flooding issues. So the pump stations, the sewer pump stations are always located at a low point, usually along a creek somewhere, and usually along a creek that floods. I mean, because the wastewater just drains downhill, and you always want it at the lowest place, and then the pump station pumps it up and over to a ridge to get to one of the wastewater treatment plants. Well, we had the Snow Creek Pump Station Flooding Mitigation Project and the Falling Creek Pump Station Flooding Mitigation Project. Basically, one of those was, the design was funded on both, the construction was funded on one of those through a FEMA grant prior to Helene and prior to administration changing. But so now we have been told that we're not going to receive the construction monies for either one of those projects from that FEMA grant. The good news is we're pursuing, there are other grant opportunities out there that we are pursuing. So that's, pushing $13 million worth of expenses that we thought we were going to have covered, but we're pursuing other grant and loan processes because we have the design done on both. The frustrating part is the design has been done and has been in process and would have been funded and approved if it hadn't taken so long at the federal level to get through the process. So, but regardless, so those are still projects for flooding mitigation at two of our major pump stations. Another major pump station on the sewer side is the Moose Club Pump Station. So we're looking at a flow diversion project. That pump station is reaching the max of its capacity, so we need to intercept some of that flow at some point, and the flow that comes to that plant gets pumped to the northeast plant. The project would divert the flow to the Henry Ford plant and take the pressure off that pump station. That's a $10 million project. All right, so where are you going to get the money? I don't have anything on this. This side's blank. No, it's not. So revenue options, you really just have a handful. So water and sewer rate increases. To put all we need to do on the water and sewer rates, and most of our revenue comes from residential folks on the water and sewer side. We don't have much wet industry anymore. That maybe wasn't the case before. We lost a lot of wet industry, but now it's mostly just residential users. We do have some big industrial, commercial, but disproportionately. So it's difficult to say, well, we're going to raise all these rates to a point where we can raise the money to pay the debt, and put it all on the household, rate user, water user. But part of it will be, but it'll be spread out. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So that's what we have recommended tonight is dedicating a portion of the property tax rate towards this. And it may be when we have revaluation in a couple of years, we may carve out another half cent. So that gives you a penny. You're pushing $1 million a year. And so now you start talking about real money over a period of time to accumulate. And on the property tax side, the disproportionate payers are the industrial and commercial people. So the homeowner's still getting a property tax rate increase, but the disproportionate payers are the industrial and commercial. So it's the opposite of what the water and sewer system is. So you start balancing that out. You're not putting it all on one or the other. So that's the concept here. And there's precedent because in 1925 or 6, there was a bond referendum for a new water plant. Well, the bond referendum you have to pledge your property taxing authority. And the same was done in 1987. There was another bond referendum. The property tax rate was pledged to build the current water plant. So, that's not unheard of. In fact, it's quite common for particularly larger types of water and sewer endeavors. A third thing are your system development fees. And a couple of years ago, system development fees are fees. So if I'm building a house, I'm going to pay a tap fee for the water tap or sewer tap, and then I'm going to pay a system development fee. So the system development fee covers my impact of the capacity that I'm taking out of the system for the future. So I'm paying today to replace the capacity tomorrow through the system development fee because I'm taking a portion of our capacity out of the system and I'm paying for it to replace it. So 2 years ago, city council really increased quite dramatic, but it was not, you have to have an engineering firm, a financial services firm. There's the state outlines a process to do it. You just don't set them. It has to be justified, and there's a process whereby we went through and did that and came to you with what the numbers were, and you approved those. So that will be a good source of revenue to go towards these future, these projects, because that's really what that's intended for. So those are three, and then a fourth one is, so we have current debt service in our water and sewer fund. So an example is we had the Murray Basin project. That was a sewer line project that diverted flow that we're sending to Conover to the Henry Fort plant. So in 10 years or 8 years, that debt will drop off, but we're going to reserve the debt service we had been paying and put it towards this. Does that make sense? So it's already cooked into the cake, for lack of a better word, and so we will reserve that and apply that towards these projects as well, or some combination of all the above, which is really what we would recommend. Does that make sense? Questions? Okay.
The system development fees, though, that would basically be on, for large construction,
Everybody pays it.
everybody pays it, but it is dependent on how building permits.
Yeah,
and that's-
correct.
So that's not as,
Yeah, it may ebb and flow.
Ebb and flow.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, how much, $2 million, a couple $1 million a year. And I think in 2 years, we'll come back and we'll go through that process again. And I think you do it every 4 years. And so we'll work a lot of these projects into that, and it'll be reflected in whatever the new recommended system development fees are.
Are we going to carve off a percentage of the system development fees that were, for this year, let's say, and, for lack of a better example, put it in a bucket for these future capital
Yeah,
projects?
all those system development fees have to be, by statute, have to be set aside for future projects.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
And not replacement, but to replace the capacity, like, not for replacing a water line, that's just maintenance and capital maintenance, but for these types of projects I'm talking about.
Very good. Thank you.
Will the Microsoft facilities and Apple's expansion and things, won't that increase their water rate? The industrial water rate?
It'll increase our water revenue, yes.
I mean, actually, will there be more water needed?
Yeah, and I'm gonna show a chart here in a minute. We've calculated the impact of that and what it's gonna look like over time, yes. So that's where the money's gonna come from, but here, potentially to pay for all of it, but where your financing options, how you gonna finance it, because you just don't go out and, well, into the first point here, it can't be pay as you go. It may be pay part of it as you go. So that's why we're talking about, some of these will be setting money aside and with all of these, but then generating recurring revenue sources to service the debt that will be required to do this. So the state revolving loan fund, I'm gonna come back to this. That is a great program the state of North Carolina has. That your biosolids facility was done through that. You got a 1/10 of 1% interest rate. I mean, and anytime you do a mortgage, you know how much interest you're paying. If you carve the interest off, or at least a good piece of it, that makes the whole project much more affordable. So that the state does a really good job with the state revolving fund, and it's a competitive process. You have to show your justification and the need. But getting one of those or multiple of those would go a long way towards making these numbers I'm showing much more affordable.
And we've gotten those before.
Yeah.
That 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah. And they're not all 1/10 of 1%. There's different, depending on the project, the interest rate changes, but that is by far, well, grants are actually by far the best way, because that's a grant, you don't have to pay it back. But in terms of financing options, the state revolving loan fund would be very desirable for us.
I have a question. Is it just severity of need that's based upon on who they award, or is there, for lack of better words, do they see, hey, these folks are trying to help themselves, like Hickory's trying to help themselves?
Yeah.
Does that go towards the score of, deciding who gets it?
Yeah, it does, and they've got a scoring process too. If you've run your system in the ground, I mean, you're going to get some points, but and you haven't reinvested in it or tried, now you're going to try to get a state revolving loan. So that, I don't think they're going to look favorably upon folks that really haven't, or if you have really low water and sewer rates and you haven't tried to increase rates to do the things that you need to do, that's not going to bode very well. They're going to want to see some effort to where you have tried to do some things to, take care of your own financial needs and your ability to pay the loans back.
So that's another benefit of what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Doing for ourselves. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And also working with other municipalities, that would go, it sounds from the state side, they would look very favorably on that if we are trying, as
Yeah.
Tony said, solving our own problems and working together.
Yeah, the regionalization, like that interconnectivity, regionalization, they like that. So yeah, there's, all those factors are considered. And it is a competitive process because it's such a good program, there's a lot of people that apply. And it's, and if you apply 1 year and you don't get it, you can always come back and continue to apply.
So what's the amount that you can apply for?
Is there a limit? 35 million? Yeah. So, I mean, some of these projects that both on the water and wastewater side, now the water plant's kind of a different animal by itself, but if you can get state revolving loan fund money for some of these projects, that allows you to have more money available for a water plant expansion or a new water plant. So,
That's like real money.
yeah, yeah. General obligation bonds I'd mentioned in the past, city councils in the past have done, bond referendums for water plant expansions and new water plants. I don't know that that would apply here. I think some of these other programs, the interest rates are going to be better. And also revenue bonds, general obligation bonds, you're pledged your property taxing authority. The revenue bonds, you're pledging, in this case, your water and sewer rates. Like you would commit to raise those to pay the bonds back. We're going to play this out and see what be the best option, but these are the ones. And bank financing, you have to put, if you're going to borrow $30 million from the bank, they want $30 million in collateral. So I don't know that that's going to be a good option. And again, I'm back to some combination of all of these. Again, I talked about the state revolving fund. That of all of these is the most desirable, well, besides grants. So on the solid waste fund, the recommended budgets, any questions on it? I know I've talked a lot about this water and sewer. Okay, I know we've gone over it before too. The recommended budget's $8.3 million for the solid waste fund. That's an increase of 6.4%. We have a very, Steve Miller and his folks down there, we got a very robust operation and level of service with our solid waste services. With every week you have residential waste, yard waste, white goods, junk goods. You have a truck come by, you basically put it to the curb and it disappears. Don't put gas cans and paint cans, but most everything else, it goes away. And then every other week we have recycling. So we have a really robust service level. And then seasonal leaf collection is also out of solid waste fund. Excuse me. And y'all know how that, I'm not used to talking so much. We offer that service every fall. All right, so also in the solid waste fund, we're recommending a $1 increase from $1 to $29 per month to help offset the increases. Now, you don't pay this monthly, but this isn't going to make it sound any better, but when you break it down on a weekly basis, it's $7.25 a week for you to be able to put something to the curb and it get picked up and to have your leaves collected in the fall. So that's how that breaks down. And the solid waste fund is operationally self-supporting, meaning all the personnel salary costs and operational costs, the gasoline, maintenance, and all that are covered, but it does not cover, that fee does not cover the capital expenses. Those are covered typically by the general fund. And on the capital side for the coming year on the solid waste fund, it's $1.4 million in capital expenses. You've got a front loader truck, that's for commercial, automated side loader, that's a residential, rear packer, that's going to be your yard waste, and then another automated leaf trucks. Some of those are replacement. I think there may be one of those that's an additional truck to our fleet. Okay, so that was the annual budget. I know this is going on for a while, but this is important. So there's another piece I want to share to really point to the parallels of where you're sitting today versus where people were sitting 100 years ago making these same types of decisions that I went over, particularly on the water system. But are there any questions about anything you've heard related to the budget? And so after this next piece, it'll be the time for the public hearing. All right, so there are historic parallels, and when you look at, I was amazed by some of these, where past city council, the policy decisions they made regarding our water system and where you're sitting today. But so the origins of our water system in the 1880s, there were 2 public wells on Union Square, and water was hand pumped. So, I mean, it's like something out of the Old West. There was a cistern downtown that was fed by rainwater runoff from the paper set, the HDR said, the old Opera House. So, well, the old Opera House burned down in 1902, and there wasn't enough water to extinguish the fire. And that was, and the Hickory Daily Record said, in this disaster that was experienced, the town began to realize the need for adequate water and fire protection, and it was the beginnings of our present water system. So that was 1902. So in a short time frame, in 1904, we began to draw in water out of the Henry Fork River, not the Catawba, the Henry Fork, and it was piped to a new water plant that was located at Fire Station, near where Fire Station 3 is out in West Hickory today. So that was 1904. So 20 years later, water consumption starts to exceed water production. So it was determined that the city was outgrowing its existing water source, the Henry Fork River, and the existing water plant. And water consumption was 250,000 gallons a day, which was reaching the capacity of the existing plant. This is what you don't want to have happen. So they scoured the countryside looking for, what are the other water sources? What are the things they could do to create, more water storage or whatnot? So they looked at creating reservoirs along the Henry Fork River, and they even looked at, now this is all in an engineering report, piping water from the headwaters of the Jacob Fork in the South Mountains, all the way below Asheville. So they looked, and then, so that was 1924, and the Jacob's Fork option wasn't viable because it would have required a regional approach, and none of the other jurisdictions in the area were interested at that time. So then, in 1926, there was another engineering report that came out, and this one's really interesting. So it identified the Catawba River as the new water source. Well, Lake Hickory was being built, or the dam, Oxford Dam, was being built about this time, and so even though this was identified as the best long-term source of water for Hickory, and the water intake they identified should be located by the bridge on Route 17, which that's what it was in 1926, which is US 321 today, where it crosses the river. So when you're going north up 321, if you look to the right before you get to the bridge, you'll see a brick structure. That's what this is. So, and it was actually in operation as a secondary water intake. Sean Pennell was telling me up until, because he said he used to work on it up until the early 90s. So with this, everybody agreed, okay, the Catawba River is going to be the new source, Lake Hickory. But the water intake, that brick building on the side of the road there, that project needed to be done before the construction of the dam was complete, because the shaft that they were going to have to dig was deeper than the riverbed. And before the lake filled up, they needed to started getting it dug, and that was all in the report. I'm probably giving you more history than I like history. So with that report also, there was going to be, and City Council signed off on it, there was going to be a new water treatment plant located above the intake of the current site, which is where the existing plant is today. It's been expanded since then. But the construction of that was not as critical related to the construction of the lake. And the total project for 750,000 gallons a day, a new intake, a new water plant, was $313,000.
100 years ago.
Seems like a bargain today. So maybe not back then.
I bet it was as intimidating as the numbers we're looking at.
Yes, probably so. And so there you go, 1936. So that was 10 years later, after they gave it a go, said, yes, we're going to do this. It took 10 years to get the new plant. The intake was done before then, but the new plant was finally finished in 1936. said that it produced enough water to fill 30 million bottles of soda every day. I mean, so that was 750,000 gallons. All right, so again, back to, here's the history. Up until 1903, there was no production capacity because we didn't have a water plant. So 1904, they create the Henry River source and the water plant related to that, 250,000 gallons. In 36, that's when the new plant was done. 1947, they went from 750,000 gallons a day to 4 million gallons a day. And then you can see how they start doubling as they move down. 1962, was that 15 years later, they expanded to 8 million gallons. And then 12 years later, they expanded to 16 million gallons. And then in 1991, 32 million gallons. The current maximum daily use is 17 million gallons a day. But we have sold capacity. That plant in 1991 was built to be a regional plant and to sell portions of the capacity to other jurisdictions to help us pay for the plant. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, you're selling the capacity off, but it helped. There's an economy of scale there. At some point, the amount of capacity you're adding and the cost aren't, parallel. So that was why it was done that way. So here, every year, how frequently do we do our updates to the projected? Annually. So every year, this starts at 2030, but because just to take the 10-year increments. But every year, we do a projection. So looking at our water production daily, looking at the water capacity that we have sold the other jurisdictions. Let's say we've sold 3 million gallons of capacity to the town of Maiden. Well, if they're using 1 million gallons, well, on paper, we better hold a total of 3 million gallons because that's our contractual obligation, even though they're not using it. We can't use that for ourselves. So that has to be figured into this equation. So when you look at the remaining capacity is what we have left for us. Okay? So you can see, and when you hit about that 79, that's where you don't want to be. You want to have something in place, and really before then, because what could happen is these numbers adjust every year, and it could be that we have the remaining capacity at a lower level than what we're seeing today. So I mean, we're in good shape today. I mean, that's a lot of capacity. It may not seem like a lot, but it is. But in the next, by 2050, and really ideally before then, because also having a secondary water plant, if you have an issue with your existing water plant, at least you have some level of a backup plan. And if you have an interconnection, okay, now you've got a little bit more of a backup plan. So that's where all this starts to play together. We're not going to recommend, they've been doubling every year, or you saw historically they went from 4 to 8 to 16 to 36. We don't need to go to 64 million gallons a day, but we do need to increase our production capacity both for the future and for redundancy. That's what Asheville ran into, particularly with the big freeze they had a number of years ago. They had a second water plant and wasn't operational. They didn't have it up and running. They tried to get it going and it was all frozen up. And so they had no plan B because their system had so many breaks in it. But regardless, so that's what we're looking at timeline-wise. We're not going to sell any more capacity out of our water plant. So the message would be to other jurisdictions, and I hadn't delivered this message yet, but if you want more capacity from us out of our water plant, you need to be a part of paying for your capacity for the construction on the front end. So we would be giving them time to do what we're doing, raise the money, because if somebody comes and says, well, I want another, you got 6 million gallons of capacity, I'd like to buy another million. No, that 6 million's for us. If everything's approved, we're heading down the path of an additional water intake and a water plant. That would be your opportunity to buy what you think you're going to need when that's done. But we need to know on the front end, because on the back end, you're paying retroactively to expand a plant.
And it would be so much better for them to buy into this rather than try to create their own wastewater and
Right.
water treatment.
Yeah. And that's why, I think the last was the last, well, the last two that got out of the water production business were Longview and Maiden. And they just decided that it was, a more cost-effective option for them to buy capacity and buy it from us. And they can still maintain their own systems and have their own independence related to that.
Can you comment briefly on the capacity and Microsoft's decision to come here?
Yeah, the fact that we have, and what you're seeing here is the worst case because we're not really down to 6 million gallons a day because that 13.4 million gallons, only about half of that's being used, right, so that we've sold. So Microsoft looked at us and said, well, you've got great water capacity in your system. We talked about this conversation about expanding the plant and all that. The issue was getting the water to them, which is we got funded. So we checked that box. But the fact that we had the capacity in the system and the numbers they stated initially, I don't think are going to end up, are going to be, the numbers they're actually going to end up using are going to be less than what they stated initially, which is fine. But the fact that we had capacity in the plant and a reliable water source, because if you go out west, I mean, it's, you hear about the water wars out west, but that was one of the reasons, that and the electricity, the power, Duke Energy. Those were the two of the biggest, and the fact that they had, they needed 3 sites and the triangulation of those. So those 3 things together were what, but you take one of the legs out of that stool and they wouldn't come here, so.
Thank you.
So that was my last. So I know that was a lot, but I wanted to dig in it because that's a strategic, long-range policy-making decision, and it's all wrapped up to kick it off in this current year's budget recommendation.
All right.
We're always buying new equipment. Do we have a source where we sell old equipment and it goes to petty cash or something?
Yes, we do, and we have recently been amazed at what that equipment has been going for. And we've got some I know Brad Abernathy's here, but Brad runs our fleet operation, and he's, I don't know how he gets what he gets for some of this equipment that we're, but yes, we sell
Don't tell that.
well, we sell the surplus equipment online, and it's sold nationally. They come from all over.
There's a
to get
demand.
it. Yeah.
Right.
There's a big demand for used equipment.
All right.
And it goes back into the whatever fund it came out of.
Gotcha.
Can you just really briefly go over the status of the interbasin water transfer negotiations?
Yeah, so there's some legislation at the state level. There's some legislation in the North Carolina House, and then the Senate that would dial back there'd be a moratorium on anything over 10 million, 15 million. We tried to get 15 million gallons a day. And then there's some different legislation on, but it is on their radar screen. They know this is an issue, and it comes down to regional. I mean, if you're in Charlotte, those legislators are going to be for it. If you're like us, you're going to be opposed to it. So I don't even think it's a Republican-Democrat thing. It's going to come down to where you're from. And if your region is looking to have an interbasin transfer in the future, that will play into it. Mm-hmm. And Anthony Starr at the Western Piedmont Council of Governments is leading up a regional effort. And I got yesterday a really good flyer that summarizes kind of where everything. I'll send that out to City Council. It really summarizes where we are and what the issue is really well. I'll send that out to y'all.
Any other questions?
Just a couple comments. I don't want to beat on Asheville, but an example that brings this, it really brings it home. So you were talking about in the 1880s, they hand pumped water and carried it to the destination. With Helene, Mission Hospital was thrown back to the 1880s immediately. They lost all their water in the hospital, and they actually went to the point of digging a well to provide water. And until they got that, they were hand carrying water and hand carrying wastewater in buckets. And to pressurize their system took 40 tanker trucks available immediately, all in line to pressurize the system to the hospital. Wow. So hospitals can run without power, but they can't run without water because they have backup generators for power, but when the water goes out. So that's how critical this is. And to clarify something about Hendersonville, you said they had 3 treatment plants. If I'm not mistaken, they have 3 treatment plants because they don't have, it's because the unreliability of each of the sources of water that feeds those plants,
Yeah,
correct?
they have, I may have misspoke, they have 3 intakes.
Oh, okay.
They have 3 intakes.
Okay.
But yes, because one comes out of the National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
It was built in the 20s or 30s, and one is on the French Broad that got flooded, that you saw the
Mm-hmm.
pictures of, and then one is on the Mills River. So they have 3 because each one of those 3 are vulnerable to various different things.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only other point I wanted to make, we talk about solid waste and the solid waste fund and the services. I think it's important to understand that that's really an environmental protection fund, because without the robust services that we have, who knows where this waste would go? It makes it easy to get it to the curb and for people to do the right thing and get it to the landfills. And without this service, there is no telling where this stuff would be going. So just, I like to think about it as environmental protection
Well,
as much as solid waste.
That is actually how we categorize it. It's just, solid waste is categorized in our financials as an environmental protection, as is the water and sewer. Those are in the same bucket.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, this is the first of our 2 hearings tonight, our public hearings. In just a few minutes, I'll declare our public hearing open. But before I do that, I want to explain some rules pertaining to public hearings. We'll allow up to 15 minutes for anyone that would like to speak in opposition of the information that you've just heard from our,
This guy over here.
I'm sorry?
This guy over here.
From Mr. Wood, we'll allow you to up to 15 minutes for anybody that would like to be in opposition. We'll also allow anyone who would like to speak in favor up to 15 minutes, and if necessary, we'll allow up to 5 minutes for rebuttal and serve rebuttal. Just like in the beginning when we allowed those to speak, we'll ask that you approach the podium, that you state your name and address, and that you limit your conversation total to the prescribed time limits. We ask that there not be any type of outburst, any type of clapping, cheering, or anything like that that takes place during either side that may be speaking. So at this time, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone present that would like to speak in opposition of the budget, proposed budget that you've just heard described by our city manager, Mr. Wood. There doesn't appear to be anyone that would like to speak in opposition. I'll ask if there's anyone present that would like to speak in favor. All right, there doesn't appear to be anyone that would like to speak in favor. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move approval of recommended budget.
All right, we have a motion. We have a motion, we have a second. All right, at this time, I'll entertain any discussion, and I have some. I'll just open it up if anybody has any further discussion pertaining.
I was just going to say, going through the history, I think, not only did the previous councils have vision of where Hickory was going as a city, but the residents and the support, that they get, because at the end of the day, it's their vision and they're the ones paying for it. And, sitting where I sit, and I think, I'm confident that you guys share this as well, is that we have a duty to the future, to our children, our grandchildren, to not burden them with, $270, $300 million to pay all at once. And, so this is as much about them as it is us. And, I'm proud to be part of a group and the citizens that are carrying this on and looking forward and doing this.
And I agree with that, and hearing what happened to Asheville and hearing what Hendersonville had done previously to be ready for this, I think that behooves us to take the steps now so that we are ensuring our future.
Yes.
A couple things come to mind as I'm sitting here listening to this. First of all, I want everyone to understand this is not the first time, as it's been alluded to, this is not the first time we're hearing all of this information. Obviously, there's been a retreat that was open to the public and advertised, but there's been, we have meetings, we have discussions, and we've had several over the course of the last 6 months or so discussing this. And there's, as you can see, there's been a tremendous involvement from a lot of folks, a lot of our coworkers. So this has really been a huge team effort. I applaud those of you that are here tonight to hear this. I really do wish that all of our citizens could hear the information that's been shared here tonight. Obviously, they can go back and watch it. I don't know how many actually will. But what really rings home with this is the fact that water and sewer is one of the few things that actually affects and touches the lives of everybody. And I think we have all come to a greater appreciation for water and sewer with the effects that what we've seen with natural disasters, not just in the immediate area, but throughout the country and even in other countries. So we're very, very fortunate to have in place what we have today, and just like Councilman Wood and others have alluded to, it's our responsibility to carry on that tradition for future councils and for future residents and for future growth. So, you know, it's not very often, it's not that, you know, nobody ever wants to hear a tax increase, or nobody ever wants to hear about any kind of increase related to the utilities and the services that the city provide. But I really do believe if folks have an opportunity to hear the information that was shared here tonight, they will certainly, should certainly understand the reason and the need for this half-cent increase and for the supplemental increases as has been described. So, you know, we could talk a lot more about this. We'll be happy. I meant to say in the beginning, is this online? Is the recommended
Yes.
budget online? And I think it's also available at the library, Sarah.
Yes.
So it is available to share. You know, it's not, there's not anything in here that isn't public knowledge, and we will certainly, that is certainly available if you'd like to peruse that, and if you have any, if you'd like to do like I know Councilman Wood has done, if you read the entire document, you can certainly do that. But I want to close and end with saying this, that there's a great deal of preparation in the past that's gone into this, and there continues to be a great deal of preparation and effort and work put into this. It's not anything that we'll ever get finished with, I don't anticipate. I think that councils 100 years from now, just like we're doing from 100 years ago, will still be navigating these waters. So hats off.
What you did there.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if you was going to pick up on that or not.
I did. I saw what you did.
But I was going to say floating the boat, but I'd rather say navigating these waters. But it is in the best interest of our future. And, you know, like I said, it is without hesitation that I would be in favor of voting for this. So, all right, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That carries unanimously. All right, thank you again. That was an extremely thorough presentation.
I know that was a lot, so, but
Well,
thank you.
it was, but it was extremely, and we've heard it, you know, dozens of times. If they're hearing it for the first time, I imagine that it was really interesting. Not that it wasn't interesting the dozen time. Okay? All right. All right, moving on to our second public hearing. All right, to introduce our second public hearing, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Warren Wood.
Thank you, Mayor Guest. Second public hearing tonight is consideration of a voluntary non-contiguous annexation of property owned by Century Community Southeast LLC located at 3220 Cool Park Road Northeast, containing over 36 acres, and will be presented by Planning Director Brian Frazier.
I can only imagine they're going to need water and sewer.
Hey, Brian.
Right, good evening, Mayor Guest, members of council, Mr. Wood, Mr. Swanson. Again, as Mr. Wood indicated, this is the applicant Century Community Southeast. It's a voluntary non-contiguous annexation, 3220 Cool Park Road. It's just over 36 acres in size. It's Ward 1, Councilman Wood. Current development, there is one single-family residence on the property. The future development in various phases would be up to 394 single-family lot detached residential subdivision. It's gone through various iterations until the 394 was chosen. So of course, based on your budget discussion, annexation is being sought to gain access to public utilities. You could see the property here outlined in red. You can see the Springs Road Food Lion, Springs Road here, Cool Park, Brookfield subdivision, St. Stephen's High School, Art Middle School. You can see in this picture, everything in, well, just the blue is the city limits. The property, of course, is here. The yellow is the ETJ, and anything in the white is Catawba County, predominantly R20.
Maybe, can you take care of that?
This here, again, is the city map boundary. You can see the property here. Again, Cool Park Road, Springs Road. This here is the current zoning of the property. It's split zoned now. This is R2, county R20, highway commercial, that's county. This is the CC2 corridor. This is the neighborhood commercial, including part of the property here, and the rest of it is R3, medium to high density residential. So the voluntary annexation, in our opinion, complies with all the applicable state annexation statutes. Adequate public services are available in sufficient quantities, and the annexation of the property will not cause public services to fall below their current acceptable levels. Based on these findings, staff respectfully recommends approval of the requested annexation, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Frazier?
Does this builder, or Century Properties, whatever it's called, the name, do they have any, Century Community Southeast, do they have any projects currently going on in Hickory that you're aware of?
Yeah, there are a couple that are getting ready to proceed. This is Meritage. I'm just not quite sure if they've actually started a couple of them yet, but they are in line to do some projects in the city.
Okay.
That are gearing up right now. We've talked to them for years, like I said, various iterations of this project, and they seem to be a good, willing partner for the city.
Okay, great. That's where I was going with that. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, once again, this will be a public hearing. The same rules apply as before. I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone present that would like to speak in opposition of the voluntary non-continuous annexation you've just heard described by Mr. Frazier. There doesn't appear to be anyone that would like to speak in opposition. I'll offer the same opportunity and ask if there's anyone that would like to speak in favor. Doesn't appear to be anyone that would like to speak this evening on this public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion or discussion.
Move approval.
Second?
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That carries unanimously. All right, next item on our agenda is appointments to boards and commissions. I think we have some appointments this evening, so I'll open it up.
I would like to nominate Shannon Pleasant to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay,
And I'd like to nominate Dave Myers as an at-large representative on the Citizens Advisory Committee.
all right. Duly noted. Are there any other nominations? All right. I'll make a motion that we approve those.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? That carries unanimously. I do want to take this opportunity, since Mr. Auer got up and spoke a while ago and thanked us for allowing him the opportunity, as he put it, to serve on one of our boards, and he served on other boards. I'd like to just say that we greatly appreciate the volunteer service, and I know there's others in this room that are currently serving or either have previously served on our boards and commissions, but it's that time of year where you'll start to see some vacancies probably on a lot of them, because they have to rotate off and can only serve a certain amount of time. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the very near future if you desire to serve on one of our boards and commissions. You can certainly look at those online, and it will tell you about the service on that board or commission, when they meet, where they meet, and so forth and so on about that. So first of all, I just want to thank those of you that are serving and have currently served or have served in the previous years, and let you know that if you're interested, there will be some opportunities in the very near future. So I just want to make that clear. All right, any matters not on the agenda?
No, sir.
All right, any general comments by council or staff?
I just have one. Following up on the water and sewer, I want to make an appeal to the citizens of Hickory and our customers, actually, our water customers, some who reside outside of the city limits. The thing with the interbasin transfer with Charlotte, a big contributor to their issue is their failure to plan and invest in their water and sewer system, and did not do the system development fees and manage that properly. And I hope that the citizens of Hickory and the water customers specifically will get involved and voice their opposition to this interbasin transfer, because it's not fair that they have shouldered the weight of system development fees and, the capital investments that's been required for our water system, and for Charlotte to get basically a free ride by taking our water and limiting our ability. So don't leave it up to the Western Piedmont Council of Governments and us. I'd like to see our citizens voice their opposition to this interbasin transfer.
I do hope that the legislation will also force Charlotte and other large cities that want to take water out of other basins to have to implement what we are doing.
Yes.
Anything?
I have two things, actually. Due to what happened this week, the tragic shooting, and it was adjacent to where we are, there's been a lot out there with updates and, circumstantial things. We have been involved. Thank you to our police department for their support. And we really just want to share our heartfelt condolences to families who had people injured or even deceased. The second thing is I think it's someone's birthday.
Oh, my goodness.
We're not going to sing, but happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're not going to sing.
Okay, thank you for that, especially. Y'all be thankful for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, I know.
It's tough.
It is tough.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I will say this. We are not going to go into closed session as described on your agenda for this evening. So we will not be going into closed session. So just know that. Yeah, I know y'all are disappointed about that. All right. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right. Thank you for being here.
Wow, how long was it?
That was all right.